When I picked up a camera seriously about 15 years ago, the photography world was a different place. Everything was analog, internet was hardly in existence yet, and everything we learned at school, from teachers or books. The world we live in now is really different, so the way in which we learn things is a lot faster, and we can get to a quicker result by just having information kind of passed to us, that you can watch it online, you can read it on a site, and all of a sudden what took me maybe 4 years to learn, you could probably learn in an hour. And I think that's great. So what I wanted to do was put together a list of tools that I wish I had when I started in photography. Tool number 1, seeing your eyes. As photographers, we want to be able to train our eyes, and we want to do exercises that allow us to get better at noticing the sensitivity that our eyes pick up. Some examples of that: if you step outside and you can look outside and say, all right, that's f4 1500th of a second at ISO 400. That's something that you can train into. It's not mystical. A lot of people are really kind of wowed when somebody can guess the shutter speed and an exposure, but really you can train your eyes into doing that. Another thing you'll see is, working with students often I'll say, like, that to me is a 35mm shot, or that's a 50mm shot, or that's a 90mm shot. You'd like to be able to envision focal lengths so that you can see through the lens without having the lens in front of you. Number 2, figure to ground. This has got to be the most important lesson that is hardly taught anywhere. It's like embedded in art teaching, but is completely absent from photo teaching. Whether you've got a light figure on a dark ground or a dark figure on a light ground, it's something you want to be able to turn on and off like a switch in your shots and know that you're using it. Number 3. Number 3 has got to do with seeing light. Really, when it comes to looking for light and training your eye to find light while you're out in a scene, inside of a piece of architecture, really what you're looking for is you're looking for the shadows. It's the combination of the lights and the shadows and the quality of the shadows that you get, whether they're harsh or whether they're soft, whether they're warm, whether they're cool. Being able to see light, identify light, has a lot to do with looking in the shadows. Tool number 4 we want to look at is the illusion of the third dimension. So something that is inescapable in photography, whether you're making a print, whether it's an image online, whether it's a book, all photographs are two-dimensional. They are flat. So the illusion of the third dimension is something that we as photographers bring to the picture. And there are conventions that you can utilize that will enhance the illusion of the third dimension, and then there are ones that will destroy it. Number 5, atmosphere. One thing that you'll notice, particularly when you look at travel shots, is that most travel photographs are taken between 10 a.m. and like 5 p.m. So it's when it's after everybody's had breakfast, they leave the hotel, they go out, they shoot in the middle of the day, and then they come back and then clean up and go to dinner. The thing is, if you want to create atmosphere in your shots, you have to put yourself in a situation where there is some atmospheric conditions. So it's gotta be moody. And as nice as it is to walk around when it's 75 degrees and sunny, or 23 Celsius for anybody on the Celsius scale, that makes for a nice walk around. The problem is it makes for really, really boring pictures. So you'd like to be able to create atmosphere, to find atmosphere, so that when you look at the pictures, they don't all look the same. Number 6 is perspective. Perspective is the overarching theory that allows us to see depth and three-dimensionality, but it's put together in a system that's evolved in art over a few thousand years. When photography teaches leading lines are like the cliff notes of perspective. It's sort of like the tiniest abbreviation of an entire field of study. And I find that when you read about leading lines, it's just the same thing over and over again. You've got like lines that converge on horizon, make you feel like it leads your eye into the picture. But I feel like photographers are all a lot smarter than that, and that they can actually handle the ideas of perspective. They just need to understand where they came from, why they came about, and then how they can use them. Tool number 7 is the portrait. And you think, like, how is a portrait a tool? The way that a portrait is a tool is that artists used to use the head as a summary of the whole body. So that if you could get the head right, you could get the rest of the form right. All of the ideas that govern the proportions of the face and how the head is a volume, how it exists in space, that was something that you would practice as an artist before moving on to a full form. If you learn how to make a portrait, it will allow you a complete understanding of all of the other concepts that we've talked about, and it's in one small summary so that you don't have to travel far to do it. All you need is a model. Or in some cases, you could just use a bust of a model. You wouldn't actually need a person. But it allows for you to take all those ideas, pack them into one subject matter, and see if you can do all of them at once. Number 8 is scale. And one thing that you've probably stumbled upon just experimenting with a camera on your own is that if you take a picture from the ground, looking up at somebody, they look bigger than they really are. And if you take a picture standing above them, looking down on them, they look smaller than they really are. What you're playing with there is scale. And scale doesn't apply just to people, it applies to objects and buildings, landscapes, everything. The way in which we can make things appear bigger or smaller in photography is an illusion. And it's something that we can experiment with based on our position, on the lenses we use, and it is something that is completely malleable so that we can make the changes ourselves. Number 9, most people would expect composition, but we're not going to get into that yet. Before we get into that, the 3 ideas that are absolutely critical to even understanding how composition works is understanding negative space, which is the space between your subjects, notional space, which is the space that your subjects occupy, and gazing direction. And gazing direction is how the objects inside of a frame get your eye moving around. So what you're trying to understand there is you've got the thing you're taking a picture of, the space between it and whatever's in the background, and then how your eye is going to move around. Number 10 is composition. Most people would love to learn composition first, but in order for you to play with composition, to get good at composition, you want to be comfortable with what you're composing. You want to get used to the other tools first. You want to use them with some frequency and get some level of predictable results. Only when that happens, only when you've got a handle on lighting, when you've got a handle on notional space, when you have a handle on the portrait, only after these points can you start looking at how composition comes into play. So that's why I put it at the end of the list. It's something that you work up towards. Everyone will get to it, but you want to have these other tools in place first so that when you start working with composition, you have a handle on what it is you are composing. We each learn in totally unique ways. You might be somebody who's super technical, loves the technical side of photography, loves reading all the theory, loves experimenting with things, or you might be somebody who just picks up the camera, flips it on and says, like, let's go. I designed this for both groups so that it doesn't matter what your approach is. You can pick and choose and use a toolbox so that like everything that you acquire, you can say like, good, I know how to use it, I'm putting it in the box, I'm going to take it with me. I can use it if I want, I don't need to, but at least you know that you have it there. And once you have a toolbox of resources that you can go to easily, with some regularity, and without any doubt or hesitation, it's going to allow you to make the pictures that you want to make, pictures that have your unique view to it. So learning how to use tools, it doesn't limit your creativity. It's not going to make you one style photographer or one type. This applies to any genre. It doesn't matter. I mean, just as like knowing how to use a hammer doesn't make you a mason, it doesn't make you a carpenter. It just makes you someone who knows how to use a hammer. So with this, you'd like to be able to use these tools in a way that fits your needs and your vision. If you have a little bit of a roadmap laid out, it might make it that much easier. So I hope it's useful for you, and I look forward to seeing what you make out of it.